This podcast is brought to you by Connect First Credit Union. Today we have a really exciting show, but I wanted to start just by setting it up a little bit. Like when we think about the challenge we've talked about many times before on this podcast, the question is, how are we going to be successful as a province, as in our communities for the decade ahead? Obviously we're going to have to be thinking about how we solve problems differently. And the other piece, I think that's just obvious, but it still needs to be said, is that every Albertan who wants to be a part of this opportunity to reinvent ourselves as a province, to reinvent our communities, to find a better way forward, we all have to have that opportunity to contribute. And in that economic future, the opportunity is really open for everyone to step up. And it is also true that we can speed up if we can get some segments, some groups to take on more opportunities. And new opportunities will arise for everyone if we can make that happen. It's really this incredible, virtuous, I think, situation that's possible ahead of us in the next decade if we can get every single Albertan contributing the best they can. And here's another fact, is that more entrepreneurs is better than less. That's obvious, isn't it? And that would be a great thing if we saw more people starting business, if we saw more people getting into business, building businesses, growing businesses, creating employment opportunities. At the end of the day, the opportunity is abundant. It's not limited. But we know we need to do things differently to support some, to really help them get on the track to build this better community together. And for that reason, we've got two incredible people who I've had the benefit to get to know a little bit over the years past. And if you were to read their resume, you would say, hey, these are people who are destined to change the world. So I want to start by inviting Shelley Kuipers and Judy Fairburn to the show and welcome you both. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
good morning.
I wouldn't do it justice because when I was looking at your backgrounds, I've got 15 pages. I mean, these aren't your resumes, but this is just what we've been able to uncover on you. It's a pretty incredible history you both have. Do you want to share a little bit with our audience who you are and what you're about?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in first. Shelley. I'm born and raised in Alberta, but I've had the opportunity to live elsewhere, Germany, the US, and the UK. But I'm back in Alberta and working with Judy on, like you said, changing the world. But my background is, it got started in upstream oil and gas and then transitioned to technology. Had the opportunity to grow up inside of a tech company in the 90s, one of the very first tech companies here in Calgary. We called ourselves an energy software company. We were very forward thinking, even at that point in time. And then following that exit, I've just embarked on my own, being my own entrepreneur, either co-founding or founding companies. And also I have a family office and we work with our family to invest capital largely here in this province, which is really cool. And yeah, I definitely have this disease called entrepreneurship. It's a very good infection to have. I've had the opportunity of creating some really amazing companies and doing some really amazing work with companies here in Alberta, but globally. And yeah, I'm just getting started.
That's awesome, Shelley. How about you, Judy?
I was born in Calgary, one of the few at my age, and very proud of that. It's offered lots and lots of opportunity. I'm an engineer by background. I went into that at a time when as a woman, a lot of people were saying, why would you do that? How is it possibly interesting and fit for a woman? And it's been a great fit for me. Engineers are all about taking challenges and solving them and creating opportunities. And I think there's a great synergy with that. And that's what great entrepreneurs do too. Innovation is absolutely in my DNA. I got lots of background in working right in the field as an engineer and pivoted, got an MBA and evolved from developing technologies and being in the field and things of that nature to actually working on the money side and the strategy side of the game. When I did my MBA, I remember the pivotal time that I read Michael Porter's article, Green and Competitive. And that really kind of lifted me to that side of, we have to shift to a greener world, and that is where business has to go. And that was about 20 years ago. And that really informed me and many of the career choices I took after that in terms of leading businesses that were moving there in terms of, at that point, one of the largest carbon storage businesses in the world, and co-creating interesting ventures to bring companies together to innovate in environment, bringing entrepreneurs and companies together so that we could really shape our future and do that, as leading forces in Alberta. And that's where I got my bug for venture and working with entrepreneurs, created a $100 million venture fund. And, as the world kept evolving, I kept this passion for Alberta and the new economy, past fortune of Alberta Innovates, and then got to a point where I said, I got to go full in on this. And so I left a senior energy executive role, threw myself into the entrepreneurial world now, and been having a blast, learning a ton and as co-CEOs with Shelley in the 51. And we'll get into why the 51 and why it's such an awesome opportunity. I had a stint actually in the federal government as well, which was really neat. I was the first private sector executive right into the Canadian equivalent sort of the White House. And they used to say about us, it's great to go away for a while, like Shelley went global, because they'd say, well, what's really neat about Alberta is you guys just get it done. You don't study it to death. You just get after it and get it done.
So I wasn't kidding when I said you both have resumes that are, basically the blueprint on how to build a foundation to change the world. But why don't we get right to it? Tell us about the 51. What's the 51?
Yeah, the 51 is many things. Initially we got started as a community, 75 women in a kitchen. We put an entrepreneur in the middle of the room and we said, share your story. Let's see if we can activate women's capital for your business. And it really, really resonated. And so we just kept building from there. And I would say the vision and the ambition for the 51 has really evolved over time. We're in the market. We are learning from our stakeholders, our customers, our consumers, our community, and really designing the 51 with them. But today, if we were to say, what is the 51? We would say we're building the financial feminist economy. We believe that there's a huge opportunity to, like you said, fully liberate 51% of the population to truly participate in building what is possible through economic value creation, commercial value creation, and social impact.
And if I riffed on that a bit more, we often get asked, why the 51? How did you come up with your name? Well, it's women as 51% of the population. And really, again, as Shelley says, unlocking the talent, the capital, the networks, and just what women can make happen to get it done.
You've both been incredibly successful, leading up to this. Quite frankly, role models for others, for everyone, men, women alike. But tell us how you came to the decision that you're going to make the 51 happen. What brought you there?
We always say it's lived experiences, and I think entrepreneurs often start their companies that way. And, my experience as an entrepreneur kind of going out and raising capital, well, that was a very interesting experience in a very male-dominated environment, right? Telling your story and it falling flat, it not resonating. I would say the other aspect was as I became an investor, I found I wasn't always invited into the room. And so I kind of pushed myself into the room to be at the table side by side with some of the male allies that we have making decisions in early stage companies. And so I think it was years and years and years of that going, this has to change. Where are the women? Where are the women innovators? There's lots of them, but we need to lift them up. We need to tell their stories. We need to activate them with capital. And I think women have a tremendous opportunity to invest in the world that they want to see. And so that was a big part of how the 51 came to be.
And lived experience as well. And what I kept seeing as well was that some of the most progressive thinkers in this province, and my background's been primarily energy, were women and could see where we needed to go and were working to drive that change. Sometimes I would say they were somewhat hidden figures. And my feeling was that when you pull the collective together, you can lift where we need to be. And, I did some personal journeying, some reflecting and the like. And I kept saying, it was kind of a side thing for me. It would be really neat, if we got this group of women together and what could we drive? And then when we started to see how necessary it was in Alberta to accelerate us, we're in a global world here. We got to keep pace. And all the work, so many great people in this province around innovation and our innovation ecosystem. And Wellington, you did a great job when you hosted the ICD, the Digital Transformation Session, where we were saying, God, we are maybe a decade behind where other places need to be. And it came to me to say, we can no longer afford to have and not be tapping into the talent, the foresight, what some of our best thinkers and doers in this province are making happen. And so it was like, we have to pull those together. To me, meeting Alice Reimer, our co-founder, and her around the Calgary Economic Development Board, introducing to Shelley, it's like, yes, the time is now. This can't be a side thing. This has to be core. Let's focus on this as any good entrepreneur gets to at a point and say, this is our main gig. And let's make it happen.
Now, you've both been away, you've come back, and now some people, and I don't think people who are in the know would look at Alberta and say, hey, it's pretty redneck, it's pretty like much an old boys club. Like, why would you pick Alberta as a place you would start the 51 to change the world?
I think because it's a least expected place to do it. There's some aspect of that. But I think the other aspect is, like Judy said, we just get, pardon my language, shit done. If you look at this past year, specifically in the city of Calgary, it's a record year for venture dollars coming into the city. Why did that happen? I don't know if it was necessarily the policies of the government, but it was people getting to work and activating capital from here, but also activating capital beyond here and bringing it to the city. We know that there is such a huge opportunity if we can participate in this energy transition. We know there's a huge opportunity if we fully leverage, like we said, 51% of the population to truly contribute to this economy. The province could look quite different. And so for me, living overseas and coming back, it's almost like it's the perfect place to do it because it's least expected and the opportunity is the greatest.
And one of the things that really boosted us, and kudos to Alberta Enterprise Corporation, they did a great study a couple of years ago that said that Alberta actually has double the national average of women-led or co-led tech startups at 30% versus roughly half of that is the national average. And we thought, wow, bet you many people don't know that. And then we also came across a study from the U of A Global Entrepreneurship Monitor study that said, as you look out a couple of years and businesses that have been around 3-4 years, at that point, women-led companies were only 6%. So we said, okay, there's lots of spark happening here. What is needed is to bring the collective wisdom and experience and capital and frankly, heart and drive to propel our good women-led, co-led companies in this province and beyond forward. Help them scale, help them grow. And so what we're working to do with ourselves and all of our experience, and then our amazing investors and the venture fund and their diverse backgrounds, and we can get into that, and our broader community of 10,000 is to essentially come together and propel what's here in these great companies and these great ideas to success.
And the old story that Alberta is nothing but old boys, energy companies, and things like that. Like, that's an old story. It's not really true anymore. Alberta has transformed itself over the past few years, and I think you guys are a great example. The examples you're bringing are great examples of how that's happening before our eyes. And not to speak about Connect First here, but some people ask me, like, I'm in the financial services industry. I've met with, over the years, thousands of people in this industry. And people say to me, like, why would Connect First want to double down on Alberta? It's dead. It's in the past. They don't get it. Actually, there's a really bright future here. And it's happening every day. And stories like the ones you're sharing are, I think, the inspiration behind us and why we're actually doubling down on Alberta too.
And I think storytelling is huge.
Yeah.
And that's something that Judy and I really focus on. Well, the whole 51. The 51 is about sharing those stories, telling those stories so that we create a new narrative in this province. And it's really, really powerful if they can be linked back to individuals that are, again, like changing the province.
And so you've talked about both sides, the investment that's happening, as well as the entrepreneurs that are sort of standing up these businesses and so on. But one of the realities is that, in the next decade, women are going to be in control of most of the wealth in our nation, which is pretty incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about how we need to prepare for that wealth transfer, what that's going to look like?
It's cool, eh? Sorry, Shell, go.
No, it's a staggering statistic, right? Judy and I often cite it just to kind of communicate the sense of urgency that the 51 has about equipping our community for that wealth transfer. And so what does that look like? One aspect is the broader community, just creating a place where women feel like they belong. And we have men who are financial feminists too, which is amazing. And they're huge champions of what we're doing. But I think one aspect is just creating that space for women to have the conversation about money, about finance, about innovation, about the value that they're creating. And then, further beyond that, and what we're starting to shape is specific programming to really liberate the financial acumen that's across our community. So how do we create different types of programming? We recently launched in kind of a pilot form with Canadian Women's Foundation, the University Financial Feminism Investing Lab. We've got our very first cohort kicking off here in a few weeks. And the whole goal of that program is to get women thinking about investing, getting women thinking that finance is cool. And so we're really trying to take away this exclusive sport of finance and investing and really democratize it for all women.
We're both pretty excited about this. And if I think about this, a lot of what I think about is change and love to be a change maker. And think about this. A decade ago, 1/3 of the wealth was managed by women. To latter part of this decade, forecasting to be 2/3. That's a pretty significant shift. And people don't turn overnight. And, financial feminism, what is it? On that path to controlling, the large majority of the wealth, women need to strive to be equal in all matters financial. Like it's an imperative. This has to happen. And so the term financial feminism, comes right from that. It's an economic imperative for us to get there. And so we're all in helping women in that journey, and tremendous men like yourselves and others that are on that with us. It's for the benefit of our province, it's for the benefit of our nation, for the benefit of our globe.
And the benefit of the next generation of Albertans who want to be part of a prosperous economy that is creating jobs and that we're all excited to be a part of, right?
Absolutely.
Totally.
And if we go further on that, that's the point of view of how we make choices with our money to invest and shape and buy into the kind of future that we want to see that aligns with our values. The other thing I think that's fascinating that we've come across is we kind of inherently knew this, but lots of studies that say, like one by the CFA Institute, that women-led businesses actually outperform male counterparts by 63%. And you counterpose that with the fact that we had record venture investing, yes, here in Calgary, as well as they saw that in the US. However, there was a bit of an uptrend in investing in women-led ventures. I think it might have got to 4%. That's dropped right back down now to almost closer to 2%. So through the pandemic, we've seen a bit of a dip back there, which has further fueled us at the 51 on why it's so important to champion and invest and mentor and help the great sparks that can turn into great performing companies led or co-led by women and accelerate that journey there.
You guys have been supporting some incredible entrepreneurs in this province. Share some of the stories, the success stories of the 51 that you've been involved with.
There's one entrepreneur that I would want to highlight. Absolutely. It would be Bobby Rissette from Virtual Gurus, an amazing entrepreneur, so driven. Bobby, again, it was a learned experience, or it was an experience that caused her to create her company. She was working in the oil and gas sector. She was an administrator. She was laid off from her job, and she started to pick up some gig work. And she realized that I can't live on the wages that I'm getting paid as a gig worker. And so she said this needed to change. And so she created an economic model, which is called Virtual Gurus. It's a platform, it's a community of virtual assistants that can work from anywhere and service any type of company in that virtual assistant world. And so I think the other aspect about Bobby's business, she's Aboriginal, she's from the LGBTQ community. And what she's done is she's reached out into her Aboriginal communities, her Indigenous communities, and said, I can provide you with work. I can provide you with a good wage for the work that you do. And so, there's companies across Calgary, Alberta, Canada, even the US that use her services. She truly is a global company already. And she's further advanced her company by, they have just released a widget that lives inside of your Slack channel. That's a virtual assistant that lives in a technology experience. So you can ask Betty for assistance. And that application lives inside of the Slack environment. Slack is thrilled with the application. It's growing very quickly. They've promoted it. But again, you look at Bobby's journey and she was going, I am building this company for me. And guess what? When I've built it for me, it's actually for the many. There's many people that can take advantage of my business opportunity. She's a real leader here in Calgary and Alberta.
That's awesome.
And just building on Bobby's story, I think what's also neat is recognizing there is untapped talent in those that might be rural, underrepresented, and Indigenous, single moms as well. And she's meshed that with technology. She's got artificial intelligence experts that are leaders on her team. So this is the meshing together of what Alberta is now and the kind of potential companies that we are growing. I mean, the other one that we're really proud of too, and there's lots of stories we could tell about Alberta, is Amanda Hollis at Nanotech. And again, she was in the energy world a role, and she stepped back and she said, where do I think the world is going? I want to be part of shaping the future of energy. And she looked at a whole bunch of technologies and said, you know what, lithium production is actually not that sustainable in terms of electric cars. Yes, there's not any emissions coming out of the car per se, but let's look back in terms of how it's produced. I want to be part of, and she tapped into some technology to produce lithium in a way that produces less GHGs and with less water use. And she brought that to happen, made it happen. She's pulled together investors from around the globe. The business opportunities go beyond our borders here. And it's all around dreaming and realizing that actually us, based in Alberta, we can do amazing things of global relevance and build businesses of global relevance.
And we've done it before, right? Like Calgary has got the second most corporate headquarters of any city in the country. And I know there's still a place for energy, and a lot of those companies are transforming too. But we can do it again. And you guys are leading the way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think, where's the 51 investing in a great group of investors, over 95, like I will say that. And, through the time when we got started in 2019, we've activated $15 million in capital. And that's from private individuals. 90% now women of our investors are women that are stepping up. That's actually unheard of in Canada.
Yeah. To
have a group of investors that is primarily women saying, we are going to invest in the future, we need to say. And so as we look at it, there are tremendous opportunities stemming out of Alberta in the areas we've talked about, digital and energy transition, in clean technologies, as well as amazing opportunities in agriculture, food. We can turn what's been the foundation of our economy into the way that we lead in the world. Think about that realm, and growing population in the world wanting to eat healthier animals, healthier food stocks, all makes us healthier as humans. And we're leading the way there. And one of the neat things we see as it meshes to women is actually Canada's unique. 1 in 3 of our farmers in the 30 to 50 year age range are women. Tremendous opportunity.
Fantastic.
From everything that we've been talking about today. And then we mesh that with the transformation in digital health and the like. It all knits together.
You guys are amazing people. If you wanted to leave our audience with a couple key messages, what do you want to make sure our audience knows about the 51?
I think that there's a broad opportunity here. Like I said at the beginning, we're building the financial feminist economy. And there's a recent study that was put out by McKinsey, and they talked about advancing women's equality in Canada has the potential to add $150 billion in incremental GDP by 2026. And so we are really focusing on just that. We often kind of comment about, we aren't a social file. We aren't this group that's off doing something that's really nice. We want to be a substantive contributor to the economy and to the transition that's in front of us. And so join the 51. We're a community of over 10,000 now, wow. Which I think we maybe mentioned before. Judy talked about activating $15 million. We've touched 23 companies with that capital. And so we really are focusing on the value and the impact that we're driving, but we're looking for everyone to participate and contribute. So come to the 51, get activated, and there will be a role and a space for you to contribute and either be liberated as an investor, an entrepreneur, but come on this journey with us. We've got a long view. And like I said earlier, we're just getting started.
And we have built the 51 solely virtually. Our company has come together, our team of 14, proof positive that you can build an amazing force of people. And some of our team haven't even met each other face to face. And it's possible.
Yeah.
I think that's the key thing I would leave is it's possible. You dream, you see an opportunity. It's possible to make it happen. One of the things that I dreamed of when we got going in the 51 is that we would build a community where we could all learn about investing and pull together that collective of the really smart women I spoke about earlier in our province and beyond. Our investors in our community, by the way, go across Canada, in the States. We have, our broader community goes in the States, Europe, and the like. Every Friday morning, 10 a.m., Shelley, and mostly myself, host my Instagram TV Live. We've got guests from around the world that
That's
are on
cool.
there. And we're learning from each other. One of our Zoom investor learning sessions recently, the knowledge that came out of our Zoom chat and the discussion there elevated our whole group in just an hour in terms of their knowledge of investing in early stage companies. And it wasn't just us teaching. We just set the platform for the knowledge to come and for us to interact with each other. It's what I dreamed of, and it's happening. And we make sure that jargon isn't allowed. If somebody says the jargon, we got to say, no, what does that really mean? Because half the times it's the jargon that holds people back from thinking that, oh, I can't go do that. We're all smart. We've figured this out. We can figure this out together. And I think that's what I say about Alberta as well. Yes, things are moving fast in the world, but the basic DNA of how this province and our citizens, how we just get it done. If I think ahead 5-10 years, I think we're going to surprise Canadians. We're going to surprise those in the globe around what's happening here and the amazing diversified businesses that we're going to hear more and more about from this province, from the sectors I spoke about earlier.
The inspiration behind this podcast, when we started it, was twofold. One is we recognize that there's a lot of, I'd say, anxiety in our province right now. Like, is there going to be a future for Alberta? And we really wanted to bring the positive stories, because not only do we at Connect First believe there's going to be a positive future, we think the 2020s might just be the decade that sets Alberta apart. And quite frankly, that becomes our opportunity to emerge as a new modern economy that is the envy of other parts of the world. So I can't let you go without asking for your prediction for what the next decade holds for Alberta.
I've said it consistently. I think what's possible is to fully liberate the talent, the human capital, the financial capital in this province, to really invest in what we want to see, to be what we want to see, to buy what we want to see. We often say, you might not be an investor today, but you're making decisions with the spending power that you have. And so look at that as capital equal to the investment capital. But I think if the province can look across its population and say, there's 51% of the population that we can fully liberate in making this transformation possible for Alberta. What's really possible? And even going beyond Judy and I, we're two white women at the 51. We're not fully representative of the 51%. And so pulling the layers back and just going, there are Indigenous women in this province that are building companies. There are women from the LGBTQ community that are building companies. Women of color, there's new immigrants that are always coming here. Again, they're building their companies. So I think it's really embracing everyone to go, like you said earlier, Wellington, it's like, this is all of us coming together to do this transition. And so I would really encourage us to look beyond our immediate networks and those that we're always kind of hanging out with and go, where is this innovation and how can we really liberate it through our own personal capacity or our capital?
And if I build on that, what I'm super encouraged by is people in all walks of life that I see that are rolling up their sleeves and said, this matters for Alberta. I want to have a future for Alberta that's great for us and our next generation. And they're making it happen. And so one of the things I think that's so neat about Alberta is it's private citizens. That's kind of key to us is the 51. We built this because we knew it was important. From an entrepreneurial perspective, the investors in the community that come with us have done it because they know it's important. We go that into the broader part of Alberta. We've got people that could be totally retired, that are incredibly wealthy, right turn to those that are just scraping by, are fully going in and saying, I need to be part of the solution here, and I'm going to make some things happen. And so I think we're going to look ahead to Alberta at 2030. And like I said earlier, Canada, other places, we're going to be on the, look at those stories of what's happened in that province. That example of when the going gets tough, We get going and we make stuff happen, and we do it at speed. And we're doing it in a way that is building opportunity and is respectful of our values. We care about the environment here. We care about each other. We're a great community. What do people say when they move to Alberta from other places? Wow, that sense of community there is so cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I belong. It's about that sense of belonging that makes the difference when we're talking about bringing people from diverse backgrounds. And I think we'll be a model for that. That's what we need to be. We will be a model for that, and how that goes hand in hand, diversity with economic progress and environmental progress. Again, I am just so encouraged at so many facets of Alberta now, and people that I encourage, that I come across, that are part of creating the future now. They're not waiting. They're saying, we're going to make this happen now.
And I would just add one thing that I think, again, it's this idea of like going away and coming back. Alberta has to have a spirit of collaboration with Canada. So how do we bring Canada to Alberta, and how do we bring Alberta to Canada? You know, we are a country. And so how does Alberta emerge as a leader, not a competitor across Canada, to really do this transition? I think that's super, super important. We're all in this together.
You built on it. Where does innovation and opportunity come from? It comes from bringing together perspectives from different worlds. And we can do that. I did a stint in federal government, as I mentioned earlier. To this day, those bridges are helpful because it helps us understand each other. We're too small a country not to be linked together in creating opportunity across the country, and taking the just get it done DNA of Alberta and how we look at it, and our experience in having many global companies that have arisen from here, and meshing that with the great experience in the Toronto realm and the business sector there, and what journey that BC has gone through and become a very vibrant tech ecosystem. Coast to coast, Halifax, they're doing some cool stuff there. This isn't just about Alberta and what we make happen. It's how as a nation we lift up and make amazing things happen. And we come right back to Calgary here in Alberta. We're rated as a pretty awesome place to live. And so in this 21st century economy, where people can probably work wherever they want to work, that should bode well for us. So let's grasp that opportunity of this is an awesome place to live and to grow our economies and grow our lives.
Guys, thank you for joining my show. Shelley, Judy, you're both incredible people. Incredible speakers too, by the way. You're so natural. This made it so much fun for me. I just want to say thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Next steps. So it's hard not to be inspired when you hear speakers like Shelley and Judy talk about the possibilities ahead of us and how this could unlock, quite frankly, untold potential for our province, for the cities, our communities in our province, for everyone, actually. And, it really brings me to this, this notion that, our future is abundant if we choose to let it be so. Some people get stuck in this notion that they're stuck in a scarcity mindset, that somehow we've got to be careful around how we carve up every nickel, every dollar, because the future somehow is scary. And yes, the future's scary, but if you embrace the notion of plenty, that when we help some entrepreneurs up, that it actually helps more entrepreneurs up. When businesses become more successful, all businesses become more successful. When we see more people employed, it naturally leads to more people being employed. When you embrace that kind of thinking of abundance, the future gets really, really exciting. And when you see 51% of the population who perhaps can benefit from a hand like the 51 is bringing to help them accelerate their success into the future, that's only going to benefit, quite frankly, the other 49%. It benefits everyone. I really, really like the story of Bobby and virtual gurus, and how she turned her personal crisis of being underemployed and unemployed to underemployed, and then finding a way to create a solution for herself that actually created solutions for so many others. And that story really resonated with me, because that's exactly the situation we're in right now in Alberta. We are dealing with a bit of an economic challenge that is significant, and that it's daunting and it's scary. And yet this is our opportunity to find new ways forward, to find new ways to solve problems, so that the decade of the 2020s become the best decade ever. And that's certainly why we at Connect First Credit Union, we're reimagining what it means to be a credit union for the next decade so that we can solve problems for our members, help our members solve problems differently, and be as successful as they can be so they can create the most successful communities possible and ultimately lead to the most successful Alberta and Canada that can possibly happen. When we help all entrepreneurs become more successful, that creates momentum that helps more entrepreneurs be successful. And we need every woman who is desiring to get into business, to become an investor, whatever, get there. And I'm so glad we've got the 51 making that happen. So with that, if you liked what you heard today, share it. And share it with your network and please subscribe. But thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on What's Next Alberta.